Hi there, my name is Matthew Brick. I'm a Valor Christian High School student, brother of four. I'm a wrestler, and I'm out to find interesting stories to talk to about, make connections, and hopefully point people to God. Let's get this, the Brick House Podcast.
This is Brick's home. This is your house. Presenting the Brick House Podcast. The Brick House. Here comes the boom.
Hey there, guys. Welcome back to the Brick House Podcast. My name is Matthew Brick. I'm so excited for you guys listening in. Today, it's Tuesday. It's sunny out. It's been pretty nice out, even though last night that we got a little bit of snow here down in Colorado if you're listening from somewhere else. Today, I'm with a person I'm just getting to know. I'm really glad to getting to know him, Carter Himango. Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back at school, which most people wouldn't say, but here we are and got 6 weeks left.
5-6 weeks left, and you got like 5-6 weeks left of high school.
Yes, being a senior. Something.
You ready for that?
I'm ready for that, and I guess for me, the biggest things I'm looking forward to would be kind of moving on to a life where people are growing into the people they want to be, like growing into adults. Maturity is hard, but it's also something that's a good thing, and it's good to grow up at some point. So, yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and what are your plans for after high school? Or
So I will be studying mechanical engineering at Auburn or Texas A&M. Haven't really decided yet, but I'm leaning towards Texas A&M because of monetary reasons. But yeah.
Okay. Hey, that's cool. Auburn, where's that?
Auburn is in Alabama, southern
Oh,
Alabama.
okay.
It's a good football school. But it's also just a fun school to be at, and
Yeah.
I have a few friends there, so it might be a good place to be.
No, I think, yeah. I don't know a lot about colleges. I haven't even started looking, and, well, I just don't think college for me is, at this point, I'm not going to college. But that's my little decision because, yeah, I don't think there's nothing yet that I want to do that I feel like I need the teaching. But, maybe like seminary. That's what I feel like I've been called to do, or maybe get into more preaching or something of that sort.
No, that's fair. It's definitely an interesting question as the price of colleges rise, whether it's worth it. But for me, since I'm doing a hard science, engineering, math, whatever, that's like better to actually learn it at school and not. But I think whatever you do, I think that's probably, you could definitely get away with not doing it in this day and age.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You can learn everything off of YouTube.
Surprisingly, but
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So tell us, what are your interests? What do you love to do? What brings you happiness or joy?
The things that I've grown to love are community, faith, and I would say those are actually the biggest two if I really wanted to just condense it down to two words. It'd be
Okay.
Community and faith. And community, I think that encompasses a lot of things, whether it's friends or events. Like I love watching sports. March Madness, baby, go Purdue. Sorry to any of the UConn fans out there hoping for a repeat, but I think Purdue's earned it, and I don't know. I like the 7'4" Zach Edey. He's pretty cool.
Okay, I haven't watched a single second of March Madness unless you count Caitlin Clark, because everyone knows her. Like, she's the only person I know, and she's, not men's basketball either, but yeah.
Yeah, she's been killing it. Good for her.
Yeah. I hear she's quite good.
She's very good. Yeah. Yeah. What else?
So you were just saying community and faith? Yeah.
So community is a lot of things. Everybody loves spending time with their friends, but I think as I've grown older, I've come to prioritize like just deeper friendships. That it's not just about like having a good laugh or doing things together, but really like getting to know what makes a person tick, what makes a person just happy, just cuz, and without having to really go through the motions of friendship, but really just get to the point of who a person is and know that person inside and out. So I just think there's something so beautiful about being, and this is both friendships and romantic relationships, being intertwined with somebody where you can just predict how they're going to be affected by stuff and just know them so well that you can almost think like them at some point, which is cool.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to say I haven't found that person because I'm more than blessed. I have a youth group. I have friends all around me, but I am looking for that. I don't know. I think it's God's timing, and maybe he's right there in front of me and I'm just not paying attention. But I say this kind of, I don't know. But yeah, I feel like I'm looking for that friend. I've always wanted that one friend. But I think it's going to come. But also at high school, I think it's just like, it's just all confusing, at least for me a little bit. All these different directions.
Well, what's interesting to that point is like it could be in front of your face, but it also, it could just take time. I know I got beyond blessed. The very first day of high school, I had lunch with James Algermison, who is really that friend to me, and we've had some ups and downs this October. We had some stuff, and we've had just a few smaller arguments over the years, but like at this point I just know him so well, and I know there's nothing I could do to really estrange his friendship, and I think he knows the same about me. And we just went to Europe together for the Humanities Discovery trip, so we went to Rome, Florence, and London over 12 days.
Wow.
And it was just like I didn't get to see a different side of him because I already knew how he was, but just keep cementing that bond that I know, like, even if we don't go to college together, like, he will be somebody that I can always just understand and just kind of connect with on more of a soul level, spiritual level than that. But yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard people say this, but like that's the reason why God made Adam and Eve. Like Adam was not meant to bear this life alone, right? We all need that one person, friend or like significant other someday. But I do think like if I can, and I'm actually starting to build those relationships right now. This year it's been crazy. Like if I were to tell you where I was last year to this year, I am like building kind of like tiny little foundations of relationships that who knows out of high school I could call anytime. Like if I'm in a hard situation, I can say, hey, they'd be willing to help me and have my back. And I think that's what a lot of people strive for, but ultimately blessed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think like as you kind of, I don't know, in the Christian walk, like I think a lot of times for people forget like the first commandment is to like love God. Like, I don't know, I hear a lot of people talking like, oh, we can love God through loving others. And sometimes like, I wonder when we're like skipping that step of like loving God, of like focusing on being in the Word or being in church and like worshiping. Like, I think that those relationships, there's a verse in Matthew that really has like kind of been so instrumental for me this past senior year. So, and I can talk about that a little more as well, but it's seek first his kingdom and the rest of these things will be added onto you. And so kind of going to what you're saying, like it is his timing, and like the moment that you like, for me, the moment that I kind of just started focusing on God, like there was, not that everything like worked out, there was no like, the magical story till ending is still coming, crossing my fingers, just kidding. But there's at least like, there was a spiritual piece to like know that I was in the right, like where God wanted me. And that was something that I had not actually experienced before. And do you mind if I keep going?
Oh yeah, go on.
So as I'm approaching the end of high school, I look back with a little bit of like regret, or a lot of regret, but also just like so much gratitude in my heart for a lot of people and just opportunities that I've had. Because I think by my sophomore year, I think I had everything I wanted, everything that I could possibly want. I had perfect grades. I think that was the time when people started to say, oh, you're going to be the valedictorian. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, cool. Like, I mean, I was working hard, but I wasn't quite sure if that was going to happen. And then it was like, oh yeah, if you stay the course. And then I had a bunch of friends and a great friend group and a girlfriend, and that was something. And we were moving pretty quick and all those things. And I was playing baseball for Valor, and I think like everything that I could have possibly wanted, I had. And then, but I look back at that moment and I'm like, I think I wasn't, I was not at all spiritually ready to handle some of those blessings. And I think that's where as I look back, like my story gets more interesting, is because I had to learn about a lot of things, but the biggest were loving God for his own sake and humility. I think those were like two major lessons that I had to like swallow in a sense, because I had already had everything that I want, and so I was like, oh, I can kind of just coast with God and just let it all, like, let the world come to me, because it was working. I didn't have anything to like worry about. And then things began to go a little sideways when I made some mistakes in that romantic relationship, and then we broke up after some other drama that included a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'll leave the nitty gritty out of it, but that first time we broke up, and that coincided with my first missions trip to Guatemala, which I saw things I honestly didn't believe in. I saw speaking in tongues and with a translator. So in scripture, I'm sure some of you guys know, when you speak in tongues, you have to have a translator, or else that's usually not actually from God, or usually being faked, because or otherwise speaking in tongues is only edifying for the person who is doing so, and for God, because normally speaking in tongues is to praise God or communicate with God, all those things. But when you do it in a group, it can cause doubt or, like just conflict if it's no translator. So, but there was translator, and it was like the amount of testimony that came out of that trip from the speaking tongues, and also just the way we were able to serve kids. We hung out with them, we built houses, just a lot of really fun things. And we were exhausted, but like God was definitely providing the strength to keep going with 6 hours of sleep day after day after day, in addition to 10 hours in the sun and 95 degrees and all that stuff.
Wow.
Just like exhausted, but like God was still there. And like, I think that first trip, like along with that breakup, kind of put me in a spot of like recognition that I was not where I needed to be yet. And I think it's one of those things where like God will use, as the Genesis 50 story of Joseph goes, God will use the things that go bad to like create that space for you to draw near to him. That was one of the first things, and that trip definitely taught me, like, started to turn the focus away from myself, because I realized like, oh, like I think that I'm being called to serve God's people in a lot of different ways, and I think that trip first highlighted that for me, because I was like, stopped worrying about myself for 17 days, and I realized like God was like speaking to me and ready to speak all the time.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off what you said, I wanted to share this because I actually saw it today. It was an Instagram reel, but they were like the 3 hardest words to say to God. But I think it's please humble me, God, and that it might sound like maybe some people might literally be an ignorant, not ignorant, but they might have it. They feel like they kind of self-glorify themselves. Mm-hmm. But then also that doesn't have to necessarily mean that way, but also just like, let you, Lord, be the focus of my life. I liked what you were saying. Just, and like God can take what is maybe a hardship and turn it for good. But I loved what you had to say. It was great.
And then to kind of go off of that,
yeah, sure.
Please humble me, God. Like, I think that was like, it's so funny how as humans we can easily mix the good with the bad and easily mix all this good stuff with sin. And I found that as I came back and there was things that were better, and I had a larger heart for serving, and that was something that I knew I was being called to, there were still areas where I was like kind of shutting God out. And that relationship, which we had gotten back together however long after the trip, was definitely one of those areas. And all that to say, I think that as I progressed, I was like, I didn't have any conviction with some of the things in the relationship that were not biblical. And so I started praying this in probably March of the previous year, where I was like, God, give me conviction about this, because I know, like, I knew in my head, and this kind of coincides with how my humanities class, because I'm part of the Valor Humanities program, which is why I took that trip to Europe. But freshman, sophomore year, we basically learned a bunch of theological things through reading the Divine Comedy all the way through the City of God, Paradise Lost, learning about St. Thomas Becket, who was a martyred saint in England, and all these other things. So we had the total head knowledge, the spiritual education, and I think that as I kind of had my eyes open to my, the things I wasn't doing well, at least because of the head knowledge and that awareness, I was able to go, oh, God, like, I don't feel this. I don't feel conviction about this, but like, please convict me about this. And sure enough, is praying for, you should be careful what you pray for, because God answers a lot more prayers than you realize. If there's a verse in Ephesians that says the prayers of the righteous are very effective. That's not the exact wording, but and I think there's another verse that basically says when you ask something that's good that glorifies God and is good for God, like that prayer is basically going to be answered. And so so you ask for something like that, just be careful that you actually want what you're asking for, because I started to feel conviction about things, and me and my own shortcomings didn't handle that situation best I could with my significant other, and so that caused a lot of tension between us, because I didn't know how to express the fact that I wanted to slow down would be the right word there, and kind of hit the brakes. But it was in that moment where eventually that relationship did end because of a lot of things. It wasn't just that, other things that I had done wrong, including not being kind of not hiding, I wouldn't say hiding bad things, but kind of just hiding information to save people from being uncomfortable. If you know, like,
okay, yeah.
Sometimes you can omit the truth, not in a lying sense, but just not say things because you're worried about how it would impact the other person. But unfortunately, relationships depend on honesty. And I guess I say unfortunately because it's hard sometimes, not because it's not good. It is better when you're honest, but there's a bunch of things that ended that relationship. But afterwards, that was my moment of going, okay, so now I have conviction about these things, and now I want to really chase down who I want to be, because I've had this kind of awareness from that Guatemala experience and the head knowledge from the humanities program, which is my freshman, sophomore, and now my senior year. And now I'm like, okay, how do I actually put these together? And so in that time of also being a little confused, okay, God, I don't know where I'm going to college. I don't know who I'm going to be with, all that stuff. And I just kind of began to, with that conviction and with that kind of desperation almost, just kind of pray and lean on God all of a sudden. And once again, God answers prayers. I prayed for some spiritual habits. I prayed for more faith. I prayed for him to speak. And I was just that has become my senior year testimony, that in this, I would say 2023 was probably the hardest calendar year of my life, because of also amidst that whole Guatemala incident and restoring or getting back with that girl that I had dated for a while. My grandfather also passed away right in the thick of that. And so amidst all these things, I'd had the probably hardest calendar year of my life, and yet these past 6 months, I have had total confidence that I'm very prone to doubting, as many people can be. Not that it's an excuse. That's not an excuse. I shouldn't doubt as much as I do, but
it's normal.
It does happen. That I'm right where God wants me. And I think that has really allowed me to be okay with a lot of the things that I did that I wish I hadn't, because I know that God is working all things for the good of those who love him. That's Romans 8:29. And also, even to the extent of the ways that I'd messed up that relationship or done things wrong, hurt other people or made other people unhappy in the past, not treated my family well, all that stuff. 1 Corinthians 6:11 says, some of these things you were, and it's referring to a bunch of sin. It says, but you were sanctified, justified, and made clean by in Christ Jesus. And so that verse, along with the other two I've already shared. So it's I'd say like Romans 8:29, 1 Corinthians 6:11, and I think it's, gosh, Jesus, strike me down if I say this wrong. Just kidding. It's in Matthew 5 or 6. It's the Sermon on the Mount, but I think it's Matthew 5:33. The seek first His kingdom, and the rest will be added onto you. Those kind of became my rally,
Your anthem.
my anthem exactly for this year. And so that was, and I don't regret it at all. And I'm so, as I look back, like I can already see that no matter how the rest of the story plays out, like I've already seen how much God has provided His grace and His mercy in the places where there were sins that I didn't want to let go of, or ways of thinking that were just becoming second nature, but God helped me overcome them in a sense that I was like, I really was striving towards and almost reaching a state of becoming the person I wanted to be, and also still being like trying to maintain that humility of like knowing there's so much more to learn.
Yeah, I feel like you hit it on that. We're never we're always learning. We're never not learning. Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to hit on. You were just saying a little bit of like how like I think you're saying something about thoughts or something like that. Like you were thinking something, but then God helped you overcome that. What was that like? Or if you'd be willing to share.
No, of course.
What was that about?
That was honestly, I think there are two things. First was, I would say there's two different kind of avenues of this. I'd say one would be more of a cynicism route, where it's like thinking that because I know more than people, that makes me better than people. And I think that one has become checked, because I think what continues to surprise me to this day is like how people who don't know a lot about something can come with like an intuitive connection or something that like you wouldn't expect, but it's actually like, it can be very insightful. And that's one of those things where it's like, it's not all about how much you know. It's about, how God speaks through you, and also just about, it's more important how you treat others than how much you know. Like at the end of the day, like knowledge is only a miniature facet of how God has revealed His glory to us. And then the other one would be my kind of in that route of conviction of not viewing sex or romantic relationships or things in the right manner. And so I was, I guess, after that breakup, and even right at the end of it, I think because of part of the toil that was going on, the anguish in the relationship, I had begun to masturbate again, which was something I hadn't done for a while, which I think was mediated by the stuff that I had been doing in that relationship. But then as I stepped away from that, I stepped into something else. And then, and so that was one of those things where it was like, okay. And I kind of tried on my own to curtail it, because I don't know, it can be shameful if you really think like it's sure. Just like, oh, you don't want to tell people that, or like you actually think about it, it's like, oh, that's kind of gross. And then, I mean, because I hesitate to say pathetic, but really pathetic. Yeah. I mean, not because you're basically saying that you need that dopamine rush to live your life, which even though you know, and everybody who does it, we all know, like, it kind of sucks. It's like, it's just like, you wouldn't tell your mom, you wouldn't tell your grandma, like, and so for me, that's all you need. That's enough. Yeah. You're not going to be happy telling God that. And so I was like, I tried to stop it on my own just out of that. And then there was this point where I'm like, all right, God, I can't do this on my own. Like, basically, Jesus, take the wheel. Like, I need you to give me the strength, because I know if I do this on my own, I'll be able to, like, I have the self-control to not do it for 4 days or 5 days. And then It's like, it's back to square one. And so it's like, that's not enough. It's not enough to be in a decreased sin pattern. Jesus says to the woman in John 8, go and sin no more. Like, we can't just be mitigating our sin. And that was something that really kind of struck for me, because I thought for a while, like, oh, if I keep my sin at like a lowish level, like that's okay. Like it's better than other people. And then like, as soon as you step into that comparison, I was like, no, that doesn't matter. It says go and sin no more. And so I'm like, God, I can't reach that standard without your grace and your mercy. And so I just started praying. Like I pray like 3 or 4 times a day, like, give me the strength when I don't have it. Give me the strength when I do have it. Like, always just guide me to this, help me to stop. And I think I'd been praying that prayer for probably a week. And then I think, like, there was one specific night, I don't remember it exactly, but there was one night where I did it, and I was like, I didn't actually have to do that. There was enough strength in me for me. God had provided enough strength for me not to do that. Like, and God was with me, and I still did it and that was a moment where I was like, okay, I kind of like it too. Like, there's almost and so there's like, all right, so then I have to get rid of that because I can feel that God's already working with me and helping me. And and from that night, I haven't done it since.
Wow,
it's been
yeah.
almost 5 months since that. It was early November, so almost 5 months. And like, I can't guarantee this because God could not help me at any moment. Like he could take his presence in a sense away from me in that area at any moment, and then I would probably be, good for a little bit, and then I would think about it, and then But like I can confidently say, like, in the current state I'm in with where I am with God, like, I'm not going to do that at any point. And so it's like, and it's a thought change. It's not a behavior change. It's like it becomes a thought change, because if you don't think about it, or whenever you think about it, like, because Satan will tempt us wherever you're at. He's always lurking. Like, it's going, oh, it's not sin to be tempted. It's sin to entertain that temptation, right? And so it's like, as soon as I, like, having that thought change for as soon as those thoughts come up, to be like, not to say, like, oh, you can't notice that somebody's beautiful or notice that somebody's attractive.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, the moment to be like, oh, she like, anything like, oh, well, maybe she'd look good. No, she would not. She was like, that's not your business, right? Like, it's like cutting it off right at the source, and, like, that's something that I was never able to do. So praise God for that. But that's what I would say that's how I would say thoughts have really been a thing.
Man, I just want to, like, that takes a lot of just strength to share that. I can relate a little bit with that, and something that I've struggled with, and it feels like God, like I've struggled with that, and then I've struggled with, so for me, really, like, I'm a feelings guy. Like, I'm kind of sensitive. Like, I base off a lot of my judgment, and a lot of, like, my interactions are based off of how I feel. And I know people say feelings can be misleading, which I think they are. And then I think sometimes I overthink things, and I guess what I'm trying to say is my thinking has been a huge, like, my mental health, not saying that I have had depression or anything of that sort, but, like, just how I interpret things, and a lot of rushing thoughts, and, like, I just know that they're not of God. And I've really struggled with that so much, and it's a continual battle. But to see where I was a year ago versus than I am now, it's just it's amazing. And looking back, I can see all these little God moments. Like, yeah, that's where God gave me strength. And I think it's like, we were talking about this today or the other day or something, but idols. And, like, I think idols, a lot of people think it's just simply like, oh, I watch a lot of basketball, or I love sports. But an idol, I believe, is anything that distracts you or takes you away from God. And so I did some self-reflection, and I was thinking, yeah, I don't really glorify a lot of sports. Sports isn't really my thing, or this or that. But keeping those thought patterns alive, like wanting that sense of control, feeding that, and that's something I struggle. Like, if I were to be encountered with a certain thought, like, that has been so repetitive in my mind, do I think I have the power right now and strength to overcome that? No. But it was just a realization that, like, you can put things above God that are not necessarily like a basketball player or a superstar, an actor, this or that. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen God's strength, but I think it's just always, like, knowing that, like, everything that you do and everything that you've been able to accomplish is from God. And I don't know, it's just, I love it. I said this maybe in my last podcast, but when you are weak, you are strong. That's what Paul says. Because I know that I'm not strong enough to overcome some things that I'm facing. And I'm just not strong enough. But when I am weak, I am strong because I'm relying on God's strength. So that's like that. That's my anthem. That's been my anthem. And I literally heard that 3 weeks ago, and I've been keep saying it. I don't know. I love what you're saying. I love it. It got me in this moment to be provoked. But yeah.
It's actually so funny you bring that up because we read that chapter. It's 2 Corinthians 12 today in Bible class. And that is definitely one of the, I think, it's one of the hardest scriptures for some people because it's like, oh, this is like a champion of our faith. Like, I would say it's like everybody, I think we'd say Peter because, you know, he has the keys and he's the rock of the church. But like, I mean, Paul was flipped on, his entire life script was flipped. He got blinded and got told like, hey Paul, go do something totally different. And he's like, okay. And I mean, imagine you're like spending your life trying to throw people in prison, and then you're like, oh, hey guys, I actually believe what you believe now. Like, everybody's going to be so skeptical. Like, I think they, I don't know. It seems like they probably admitted a little too much of that in Acts. Like, I would be like, no, this guy's lying to us. We're going to say one thing, and he's going to throw us right back in jail, right? So, I don't know. I just think, like, the strength that Paul had to have that humility to go do that. And then also to, I'm in awe at the spiritual strength that he had and how much he depended on God. I don't think I could do that, which is a heart check in and of itself. But like the fact that he still had a thorn in his side, which is where he goes on to say, like, where God tells him that his grace is sufficient and that his power is made perfect in Paul's weakness. And so it's like, well, what does that mean? I think sometimes people will go, oh, well then if I'm struggling with something, it's fine because God's grace is sufficient. Like, no, that's not what that means. It says that Paul pleaded with the Lord 3 times for that thorn to be taken away. And so it's like, yes, we're not perfect. And in this case, like, Paul was struggling with something. We don't actually know what it is. Some people would say it was a physical ailment. Some could say it was a sin pattern, a spiritual thought pattern that he like kept having. And yet whatever this struggle was, God said, no, you can bear this because I'm enough for you. And so but I think sometimes people will forget the fact that, like, you know, Paul was like begging the Lord, like, please take this away. He wasn't just like okay with it or like, you know, like relaxing. He was like he's chasing after God. And he's like, oh, this is something where I'm not like you, Lord. Like, I want to be like you, Lord. And so he goes, let's go and change that. And so, like, to your point, like, it can be very easy to like idolize a lot of things. Like the moment that you're like that, and I think for me at least, I have this thought a little more often than I like to admit, but like if you feel a little tug on your heart and you're like, no, I'm not doing it. No way. No way. Like, oh my gosh. Like, for example, I was at a retreat with you a month and a half.
Whenever.
It was a month ago. Okay. And I was praying for people on the last night, and at first it was like, I was like, I want to pray for people. So I go to people around me, and then I was like, I start speaking, and multiple people that night were telling me like, oh, God's really speaking through you right now, and like you should consider ministry, which is a whole other testimony of its own. And it was kind of cool because I don't know, that's something I've always been curious about, but God started like kind of tugging my heart, like, oh, go pray for him. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. Like, who is that? And I was like, are you sure? Like, God, actually, like, seriously? And I did. And like, I would say one of the specific testimonies was the very end. I was about to walk out. The music was done. And I'm like, all right, God, are we done here? Like, should I go? And he's like, and then I looked up and I saw this one girl who was standing with her friend, but like, they were kind of talking, but not really. He's like, go pray for her. And I was like, okay. I was like, and most of the people I pray for had been dudes because, like, you know, I'm not trying to get all like, weird. And that's just how it had been, too. Like, I think that sometimes it can give off the wrong impression if you're just doing that. If it's like, but obviously I wasn't trying to flirt. I was just trying to listen to how I felt in my heart. And so I went up to her. I was like, hey, so can I pray for you? And immediately she was already struck, like a little surprised in a sense, like she was like, felt like it seemed like something she wanted, but like definitely wasn't asking for it. So I was like, all right, what's up? Like, tell me the story, because it seems like you've got something to say. And she basically unfolded about how she had some struggles with her parents, and one parent was not not the nicest to her, I'll say, and sometimes more than like verbal ways in a sense. And so I was like, yikes, like I'm not jealous at all, obviously. But her friend was also in this spot where he was very closed off about something. I was like, okay, but right before she told her story, I was like, okay, if she's going to say this, you have to tell her your story later, so that way it's not like unfair. So first off, they eventually told each other stories, which is awesome, so that they can actually have somebody to depend on in that circumstance. But then I just prayed for her, and like, I could just see the kind of hope between the two of them, which was something that I did not see when I was walking up to them. And they like thanked me. She gave me a big hug, and I was like, just felt with a lot of peace, and like, I don't know, I was like, thank you Lord for that opportunity, like just to be an instrument to like further His kingdom. And that was a really cool opportunity. And coming from a spot where I was originally like, God, you actually wanted me to pray for strangers? Like, this is so weird. I'm not a leader. I'm a student. Like, I'm just kind of here because I prayed about it. And I felt like you wanted me to go. Like, I'm just like, okay, like, I guess I'll do it, whatever. But yeah.
Well, I think God can use. Well, I think, and that's one thing. As you were saying that's what I really was thinking. Like, maybe what I idolize is I idolize myself over God, or like I idolize my control sometimes over God. I want it to go how I want it to rather than God's will. So that was interesting. But I think, and I want to say this to anyone who's listening, that like, if it feels like it's not in your place, or if you feel like, oh, I can't relate with them, or I don't know what they're going through. How could I pray for them? How could I do this thing? You can. God will put you in that time and place to help that person. All right, so if you were on a stage, then we'll end it with this. Once again, thank you so much. Thank you Carter for coming out. I love everything that you've said. If you were on this is like the Megatron, you're on the big stage, you're at all the TV channels have been turned on to you. What would you have to say to people? I don't know. Like, this is just how I want to end it. If there's a message that's on your heart, what would you want to say to people that are listening in? So, yeah.
I think that you need to, no matter what, act how you think and act how you believe. Whether you're a Christian or whether you're not. However you see the world, I think that you need to be authentic in how you express that. Because I think a lot of conflict comes from a difference in expectations and a lack of communication, or from people just being straight up dishonest or inauthentic. And I think that when you, as a Christian, if you say you believe this, and I'm not perfect, don't model your life after Paul, like he says you can, in his little semi-brag. I think it's in 1 Corinthians, whatever. Don't say, I'm not going to say I'm perfect at this, but the most important thing, if I could leave you guys with, would be authentic. And if you believe something, act like it, and don't be afraid to share it. Because otherwise, what are you? You could be a liar, you could be two-faced, you could be changing who you are depending on who you're with. And there's no peace there, and that's not what the truth is. And I believe, as a Christian, I believe that the truth is love. Love is the truth. And that obviously there's a loving way to express the truth, and that in certain situations where the truth is hard. But the most loving thing to be is truth, and God is truth, and God is love. And so if you think that if you're a Christian, you say you're a Christian, honor God in all the ways you believe that you do, not just in your head. And that was something that took me for a while to do as well. And that's kind of my entire story, is going from head not and just knowing what's right and actually wanting to do what's right. But if you don't have that conviction to do what you know is right, then pray about it. So that would be my biggest thing. Go do everything that you actually believe, and don't change what you believe. I'm not going to say don't change, because that's not a good thing. Change what's bad about you based on what you know is good. But if you know something is good, or if you think something is good, don't change that part about you. Because if somebody doesn't like it, or if if situation didn't work out. You can change what's bad about you, but if you think something is good, don't let that belief be shifted by other people or whatever the circumstance may be.
Woo, that's fire. Man, guys listening in, thank you guys so much for listening. And I want to just say this right now that you can't save yourself. We can help, and we save each other. And more importantly, God helps save you, and God will put the people in your life to help you and walk with you. And if you need someone to talk to, come talk to me. Come talk to Carter. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'll put his Instagram thing in the thing. But thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Hey guys, I'll see you guys. Thank you guys for listening to the Brick House Podcast. See you guys. Bye.